Hey everybody, it's me, Pete O'Shea.
And I'm Stephen Knowles. We're from the Buttonwillow Civil War Theater in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
You know, Stephen, when you first told me the story of your ancestor and that long walk he had to take home, that spurred on the idea for the series we came up with, Civil War Family History. I had no idea what we were actually going to find out.
It's been amazing. We've been asking our guests to come and tell us their stories of what their family members went through during the American Civil War, and we've gotten some astounding stories.
Incredible story. And then we've been able to go back and find the cool things about them. Every time we find a military report or their tombstone or photos of them, it's so exciting for us. I can only imagine how it is for the families and for everybody watching.
It's bringing this history to life. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, this next one coming up is an amazing story. Probably one of the best ones we've ever had. This is a lady from Connecticut. That's right, Connecticut, a Yankee. You know, we're in Tennessee. This area of Tennessee was pro-Union. A lot of the boys from here fought in blue. It's important that you realize Buttonwillow Civil War Theater is not a bunch of rednecks waving the rebel flag. This is American history. That means people from the South, like myself.
The North, like me.
That's right. And this lady from Connecticut told us a story of her ancestor who had an amazing, amazing time. The story that he lived through in the Civil War, got his leg shot off twice.
And this goes to show you exactly what we're all about. We don't have a dog in this fight. We're not picking sides. We're just saying there's a ton of your history that was taken away from you, and we just want to give it back. And these storytelling devices we've come up with and these things we've found, boy, it makes history, it literally comes to life. It becomes three-dimensional, doesn't it?
It does. So enjoy this story from Pamela Richardson from Connecticut.
Hi, my name is Pam. I'm here with my cousin Terry today to tell you our Civil War family history story. Our great-grandfather, John Darling Terry, fought in the Civil War. He was actually pretty much a youngster still when the war started. He was only 15 years old. He was a boy up in Maine, and I think he probably took off to go join the Civil War thinking it was a grand adventure, and he was going to go off and have some fun. And for all I know, he was like so many people who just thought that this was going to be a short war and he would be home. Well, to make a long story short, he made it down from Maine to Massachusetts, and he joined the 23rd Massachusetts Regiment. And when his father found out, he swiftly came down from Maine, collared his son, and took him right back home. So when John turned 16, he once again ran away from home. And 2 days after his 16th birthday, he re-enlisted in the 23rd Massachusetts. And this time his father just left him right where he was and said, if you want to go off and fight a war, off you go. And off he went. And from there, I don't know where he did any kind of training, but he became, he ended up down in New Bern, North Carolina, fighting in the Battle of New Bern in March, I believe, was it?
1862.
March of 1862, and his rank at that time was a sergeant. And so the battle started, and they were he and a number of the other young men from the New England area were in charge of working with the gunboats, because they came from fishing communities. They were familiar with how to work on the boats, work with the water. And so he did that, but then there was a fort that the rebels or the Confederates were holding on the river, and it was being defended by 12-pound cannons, and there was a number of them. They'd all been captured except for one. And so John was the only one that they felt could still get in there and possibly capture the last cannon defending this Confederate fort. And they came and asked him if he thought he could do it. And he said yes. So now he's 16 years old. He is now being given the full responsibility of capturing the last cannon that's defending this fort. He went in there with the men, now that he was commanding these men, and they successfully captured the cannon. In the process, he was very gravely wounded, and as a matter of fact, he had to have his leg amputated. Got back to the battlefield, which I have actually been to the battlefield, and they are able to mark off where all the regiments were bivouacked. So I pretty much stood, because it was probably about a 14, 15 square foot area. in the exact same area where my great-grandfather was bivouacked during the Civil War. And the hospital, it was an elementary school, and it had been converted into a field hospital, and that's where his leg was amputated. So his leg was amputated, and he began his recovery down in New Bern. And from there, he was sent back up to New York. And they wanted him to leave the Army. He actually got honorable discharge papers at the age of 16. And he said, I don't want to quit the Army. I want to go back and fight some more. And he was first sent to New York to oversee some of the draft riots, is that correct?
Yes.
To oversee some of the draft riots that were going on. And he said, this isn't what I want to do. I want to go back and fight some more. And he couldn't, they would not give him permission. They said an amputee can't successfully go back and lead the men. And he said, well, that's not quite right, because there's an amputee out there right now. And he started enlisting the help of one of the generals. General Weil? Okay. Who I think had had his arm amputated by some of the gunshots that were going on. And he was now successfully back in the field. So John got sent back down to New Bern, finally. And what he was doing there is he was one of the first people to start training and mustering at that time, the colored troops. And he became in charge of the North Carolina 1st Volunteer Colored Regiment. And that, I think, was their official, or close to their official name at first. And they were actually, was that the group that was partly in Glory?
Yes.
The movie Glory. But from what I've also heard, he was not the guy that was not a nice person in the movie. I haven't seen the movie, but I know people who have. And they said, oh, there's some guy that's really nasty. Was that him? I said, no, that wasn't him. He was the nice guy. Because from everything I've heard, my great-grandfather actually was a very nice man. So that's the story of being in New Bern, but that is because of what he was able to do there. Capturing that last cannon, leading the troops at age 16, taking over when all of the senior commanding officers had been killed. He won the Medal of Honor. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor by Andrew Johnson exactly 2 years after the war ended. So he was the 10th youngest person ever to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor. So he's continued to stay in the Army now. He's on a peg leg. He continues to stay in the Army, and he goes down to, eventually is down in Florida in 1864, and is part of the Battle of, we've got to look up the name here. Olustee, which from what I know was the largest battle that took place in Florida. And during that battle, he got his leg shot off again, 2 inches above the first one, or it had to be re-amputated 2 inches above the first one. They gave him another peg leg, and he was sent back up to New York to continue his convalescence, and that's where he met his future wife, my great-grandmother, Celia Brown. She was his nurse, they fell in love, and after the war ended, they got married. Then the hard part for him became when a lot of his promotions, because when he was at the Battle of Olustee, he was a first lieutenant, but a number of his promotions had been field promotions. So he was like a brevet first lieutenant. Then he became a brevet major eventually. And they wanted to strip him of all his ranks and send him back down to being a sergeant. And this had my great-grandfather very, very upset. As a matter of fact, we have some of the letters that he was writing to Congress and to Washington and to some of the other generals, trying to get them to reinstate his rank. Now, he wasn't looking to be reinstated to major, because that had been a field promotion. He was looking to be reinstated to captain, which is what his actual full rank had been and what his pay level had been. So he started doing that after the Civil War, and it took our family until about 10 years ago to get it to be fully recognized by Congress. We now have all the paperwork showing everything that he did. He now is a full captain in the again, a full captain in the Army, recognized Congressional Medal of Honor winner, and that's our story.
And I've got pictures of all his documentation. And I was actually named after him unbeknownst to me until my cousin found out my first name is Terry. He was Major John Darling Terry.